The Lord does not need your money.
What an interesting thing to talk about, Megan, because I have some lovely stories today about my experience at a mega church this week.
Yeah, Kirsten, I think you and I both have gone to several different churches, congregations, worship services since we have left the Mormon church. And it's
Yes.
always interesting to me, the similarities and the differences. And today I think we should talk about, your experience with your child, because raising children either with or without religion it's a big issue for everybody.
Yeah, this is something that, I used to joke that they give you the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, and then they have even like a toddler book or something. No, I need a full freaking manual. I need to know what to expect every single year because it always is hard and the target keeps moving. And every time you're like, I don't know what to do. I mean, for me, I know I don't want to do it like my parents did it. But because I never lived in anybody else's house, I really don't know what the other options are other than I'm just trying my freaking best.
Well, and that's all
say.
any of us are doing. But I hate to tell
I
you,
hope.
Kirsten, I hate to tell you it gets worse, because once you think that you have it figured out for one of your kids, you have to figure it out all over again for another kid, because what works with one doesn't work with another. And
Yep.
I think I've shared this before, but I think this is a good place for us to start. That when I started changing the way that I was parenting, I started a blog called God is the Only Perfect Parent. And do you know how long that lasted before I had to stop writing it?
I
2
think
posts.
you like 2. Yeah, I was gonna say you only wrote like 2 posts because you're like, actually, God is a terrible parent.
Right.
And
So
I agree with that wholeheartedly. The longer I am a parent and the more I reflect on the teachings that I learned in church specifically, makes me realize how truly awful he is. And I cannot even believe he gets to be a deity. I said what I said.
Hi, everybody. I'm Megan.
And I'm Kirsten.
And together we are Ex-Mormon Snark.
And today we are trading our testimonies for major truth bombs.
And we are spilling the Mormon tea and coffee and alcohol, but also the tea and coffee and alcohol of other religions as well, because we're just going to talk about religion in general and how it affects children growing up and parenting with or without religion, the pros and cons of both of those things. Because I think, Kirsten, you and I agree that there are pros and cons of raising kids with religion and raising kids without.
Absolutely. And before everybody gets mad, or you know what, just be mad. I don't care.
Just be mad. That's fine.
I'm going to say this now within the first 5 minutes, within the first 3 minutes, for all I know, once we edit this. I will not raise my children in religion. I am extremely grateful. I have raised my children without religion, but I do hold a very large space for those who choose to raise their children in religion, because I very much see both the pros and cons of it. I know Megan just said that, but I want to firmly plant my flag in no religion. And I support those still who choose to raise their children in religion. So if you want to stop the video right now, feel free. You can hear Megan's stance on it. But spoiler alert, she's on my side.
Well, I also do want to say I have 6 children and they have a variety of belief systems. Some of my kids have chosen to keep parts of religion that they think are healthy for them. And that is what I want for them. I want them to choose what is healthy for them and build a healthy framework around that. What I don't want to do is force my kids to be religious or force them to be irreligious. They know firmly where I stand. I have no idea. I'm very much in this space of I have no idea. Some people call that agnostic, but I don't like that label, because I tend a lot more towards the idea that there is no God and there probably is nothing after this life. But I have no idea, because there are also other indicators that there might be something after this life. And there might be something out there. The bottom line is I'm not going to live my life according to one set of beliefs, because I believe spirituality is very individual. And I believe that, we each have to sort of negotiate our way through this life and our existential fears in different ways. And I think it looks different for everybody. So I'm never going to be the type of person who's like, oh, you can only believe this one way, or this is the only right way. And that's why I don't fall into atheism. It's why I don't fall into agnosticism, because I think even those are too narrow of a category for the possibilities that are out there.
I agree. I like that you shared too that your kids are, on a spectrum of beliefs, because surprisingly mine are as well. I have 4 children. I'll share right now, we're a blended family, and my husband was pretty religious when we met. He didn't attend a specific church, but his child did attend a religious private school. So that child specifically has read the full Bible, has a lot of, I would say, knowledge of religion, and has chosen to reject quite a bit of it. I have to share this story really quick, that I had been living with John and this child for maybe 6 months to a year. So this child was still in their private religious school. I was cleaning the kitchen and I just had the music playing, and Highway to Hell came on. And I was singing it, top of my lungs while I'm mopping or whatever. And my oldest comes in and goes, "This is a house of God. Why would you sing that song?" And I started laughing so hard. And I said, "You know what? Maybe your old house was, but this one is not." And then John was like, "Oh my God, Kirsten." And then we had to have a conversation. But, just funny things like that have happened. My personal oldest, so my second oldest now in our blended family, remembers very little of church, does remember some of primary. We stopped attending church when they were about 4. My 2 youngest do not recall church at all. They don't remember going. They don't remember nursery. They don't remember sunbeams, nothing like that. But my 13-year-old recently has brought up, some questions about religion. And I've been very open. I've always said, this is what I believe, but you are more than welcome to believe whatever you want, because the whole point is finding spirituality in your own way and finding love and comfort and hope in that, whatever you want it to be. And they told me, "Mom, I think maybe there's a God because I feel like there's something bigger than me, but I don't know what it is, and that's okay." And I said, "That is okay." And they said, "I like when we go outside and I feel the sun and I feel like there's something that cares about me." And I said, that's beautiful. I love that. I feel like that too. They said, "I don't know if that's grandma or if that's God or there's something else, but I just love knowing that something bigger than just me cares about me."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I love that. And I'm so glad you feel that way. I hope you always feel like there's something that makes you feel happy and hopeful and all those things. So all of that being said, parenting is hard, and let's talk about it.
Yes, parenting is hard, and the religious question comes into it. For those of us who were raised in religion, we have to sort of make this decision. And for me, as a young mom, it wasn't a decision. I literally came back to church because I wanted my oldest daughter to have the religious foundation that I had. At the time, I didn't see anything necessarily wrong or harmful about the church. I was also 20 years old. So I hadn't experienced any other religion at that point, except for going to the very Catholic funeral of my 14-year-old friend who died in a bike accident. And I did not like that. The Catholic funeral service to me was very depressing. And all of that incense made me want to gag, and all the sitting up and standing down and reciting and everything. And then I went to the temple and it was like, well, I guess we are Catholics.
Same thing.
Same thing. So I hadn't experienced a variety of religion at that time. And of course, I'm a 7th generation Mormon. And so the only option for me was to go back to the Mormon church and raise my kids in that way. And I didn't make the correlation between my parents' parenting style and the way that the church treats its members.
Mm-hmm.
But as I learned more, and really, as I learned more about mental health and ideas and self-talk that's healthy, and ideas about understanding the self, that's really when my faith system started to break down, because I started realizing how unhealthy all of these patterns in the church were, and how I
Yeah.
didn't want to pass down that sense of just controlling, because I really believe my parents were controlling because the church is so controlling. And I think that they didn't really know another way to do it. It's like the
Yep.
church tells us how to behave, how to think, how to act. And when we don't, there are punishments, and
Yes.
you get left out of things, and you get denied blessings. That's the other part. It's like, not only do you get punished, but you also don't get the reward you would have gotten if you would have behaved properly.
Absolutely. Totally agree. I think shame was a big part of my parents' parenting. Um, Honestly, I don't think I ever got grounded. That was not a thing that my parents prescribed to. There was some corporal punishment, but not a lot. Honestly, that probably stopped by the time I was like 8 or 9. And even when it happened, it was not very often. And honestly, it wasn't that bad. You know, I've heard some truly horrific stories of physical punishments, frankly, abuse, that people were handed, for very slight things. That wasn't something that happened in my family. But keeping the family's good name was a huge thing. Huge thing. It was always protect the narcissist in my family. As I got older, I realized that's what it was. But it was protect the narcissist. It was make everyone look good. We were truly shiny, happy people. Specifically, my
100%.
family. I mean, we were known as this beautiful, cute, matching dress, daughters. And my parents had such a hard time. My mom was a beautiful convert with incredible story. And my father was multi-generational Mormon with, he was an attorney, and his family was in politics. And my grandfather had been a high political figure, and all these things. So it was literally like this shiny, happy people, and we had to keep that up. So if something happened internally in our family that was not in line with what my parents wanted, it was very much, I am so disappointed in you. Oh, I hope no one finds out. Can you imagine what people would think if they knew this about you? And so it was incredibly shame-based. And it took me a very long time. I'm talking well into my 30s to really break free from that shame.
Yes. Very shame-based. Yes. And that's, I've talked about before how when I left the church, I felt the shame leave my body, because that was very much my parents too. Appearances were everything. We would be driving home from church, and my parents would just go on and on and on about how proud they were of us because so-and-so came up to them afterwards and told them how well behaved we were. So we got the message that we were to always, be silent and obedient when we were in public. And obedience was a really big deal. Like if we were doing something we weren't supposed to be, we were being disobedient. And there was, physical punishment in my house, and, call it the A word, because it was, and it was sort of this trickle down effect. And I often got the feeling that, especially with my dad, that it wasn't about correcting our behavior. It was about him taking out his anger that we had done something that he didn't approve of, and that probably was going to be discovered by somebody that we weren't the perfect family. And I do think that generational, trauma had a lot to do with it too. My parents kind of passed down the anger of their parents, and I decided I wanted that to end with me because I didn't want my kids to be afraid of me. I wanted them to know that I love them, and I wanted them to know that, hey, we can have conversations. And it was definitely not, I was definitely not a perfect parent. I was a bad parent at many times. But as I just had this desire to do it better and to be better.
Yeah.
And so I just kept changing little things until I got to the point where I felt like, okay, I kind of have a handle on how to do this. Even with that, though, as I was saying before, every kid is different, every situation is different, and I'm still learning how to be a good parent to my two
Oh,
kids
yeah.
that are still at home, and also to my adult kids who are grown and gone. Because
Yeah.
I know there's lots of people who are like, "Oh, I would do anything for my kids." And I was like, "Not me. There's some stuff I will not do for my kids." I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
But the question of whether to raise kids in religion or out of religion, I think comes first from us having a healthy relationship with religion and recognizing what is good about it and what is harmful about it. So
Yeah.
maybe
I
that's
mean,
something we need to talk about.
well, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the whole point of us really wanting to do this episode, especially me wanting to talk about it, because I've gotten the question so many times. What are you going to do if your children realize Jesus is the Christ? When I say so many times, I have gotten it specifically from very close relationships in my life. People who knew I grew up Mormon and now I'm atheist or agnostic or a witch or, whatever they want, whatever label.
Burn her anyway.
I mean, you wouldn't have been burned at the stake in Salem, are you even living, right? Anyway. I would get this question: what are you going to do if your children decide to become religious? And I will tell you, I will love them. I will be happy that they are happy. I will be sad if they use religion as an excuse to cause harm to others. But I will love them for who they are and what they believe, because at the end of the day, I just want people to be happy. And as you were talking about, Megan, that you wanted to parent differently. One thing that I really hated growing up was that I felt like I was just a puzzle piece in my parents' perfect picture. In Mormonism, you don't have value unless you're a parent. You don't have value unless you're a mother. You don't have value because you can't hold the priesthood. You can't, participate in things. We've talked about this ad nauseum about how much motherhood is valued in the Mormon religion specifically.
Yeah.
So if you don't have children, who are you? And I felt a lot that maybe my mom had not wanted to have as many children as she did. And I have repeatedly told my children, and I've told them the reason why. I will literally tell them, write them cards, give them hugs, and whisper in their ear, "You are my favorite part of my life." Because I want them to know that they were born because I wanted to have children, because I love them, because I value who they are and who they're becoming. And I can't wait to see the things they do. And, we see so many ex-Mormon content creators or ex-religious individuals who have said, "I love my children, but I wish I had done it differently," which I completely agree with. I had children very close together, but I want my children to know that they are wanted. And it wasn't this mandate handed down from the church, which I think so often it is. I mean, we're going to touch on true crime real quick, just so you know. Andrea Yates hit me hard back in the day when it happened. I believe it was in Texas even. Wasn't she in Texas?
Yeah.
So I remember when I heard about it, as a much younger person, it scared me to death. That was probably the real religious, like true crime thing that really affected me, because for those who don't know, Andrea Yates, she went through severe postpartum depression. She was in a very religious, I've heard now people saying it's a cult, but she was in a religious group that, of course, said you need to have many children. And so she kept having children, even though her doctors specifically told her not to, because she would go into postpartum psychosis.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, she had 5 children. Shortly after her 5th child was born, she ended up ending the life of all of her children, and said the reason was she was saving them from sin. She was sending them to Jesus before they had the ability to sin, basically, and go to the devil. And that scared me to death, because I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, why would someone feel that way about their child? And now we see that time and time again, that the religion gets so much embedded into parenting that you harm your children. So that was something that always really scared me, but also kind of opened my eyes as I became a parent, that if you choose to follow your religion and God and Jesus, or, whatever it is, so much that you're willing to harm your children, maybe it's not the greatest thing to follow.
Right.
I said what I said.
The thing is, though, Kirsten, especially specifically with the case you were talking about, she didn't believe she was harming them. She believed she was
Exactly.
doing something better for them. And that's, where do we draw the line, and how do you tell if you're, over the line? How do you tell if your beliefs are harmful? Step away. To be honest with you, like that for me has always been the impetus for huge change in my life. Was, if I'm wondering, is this good for me? Is it healthy? Is it still serving me? I step away. And every single time I have stepped away from something that I believed was harmful, that perspective from seeing it from an outside lens helped me make the decision about whether or not I'm going to include that thing or that person or that activity in my life anymore.
I love that. I think that's a really, really healthy way to kind of check yourself and be able to separate what's going to be good and what's going to be bad, by just being like, if I'm wondering about this, I'm not going to do it. I think that's a really healthy perspective.
Yes. And also, being able to put yourself in a different mindset to say, like, okay, this weekend, I'm going to pretend like I am no longer a member of this church, whatever church it is. I'm going to pretend like I don't have a church to go to this weekend. And I'm going to live with that mindset for 3 or 4 days and see how I feel. If you feel like better about yourself, if you feel freedom, if you feel happiness like you haven't before, maybe that's a sign that that thing is not serving you, And I feel the same way about relationships. Like if you're in a dating relationship and you're not sure if this person is really the best person for you, step away and take a few days to pretend like this person is no longer in your life and see how you feel, because if it truly is a healthy relationship, number one, the person on the other side is not going to give you any pushback for doing that.
Correct.
And that's the same is true of churches and clubs and groups of all kinds. If you step away and they think, okay, go for it, have fun, enjoy, then that's a healthy thing. If you step away and they're like, oh, you shouldn't do that, you should not do that, what's going to happen if you don't go to church on Sunday and you pretend like you're not religious? Oh my gosh, it's going to ruin your spirituality.
What are you doing? What path are you taking? Oh my God. But I see we're kind of going down the parenting road, because I think that's the easiest route to go. But I really want to talk about why specifically we don't want this for our children, because that is something that I constantly think about. I mean, I constantly think like, I don't want this for them. Why is that? Like, I always want to remind myself why I do the things I do, just to make sure I'm, really living authentically. And so what sparked this conversation is that I went to a mega church recently. They had a teenagers night, like a sermon night, get together. I guess in Mormon talk, it would be like a fireside, like a stake fireside. There were a lot of kids there. They said they had over 2,000 children show up.
Wow.
Between the ages of 12 and 18. Yes. And I went to this with one of my children, and it's exactly how you would think a mega church would be for teenagers. I mean, I don't want to yuck on anybody's yum. If you attend a mega church and you love it and you feel happy and have friendships and, all those things, I could not be happier for you. Please enjoy and live your life. The thing I noticed the most was the manipulation and the emotional, not grandstanding. What am I the word I'm looking for? God, I hate perimenopause.
Elevated emotion, like that,
Yeah.
that group elevated emotion. Yeah.
Sensationalism. That's what I
Yes.
mean. Thank you, Megan. Yours works as well. But the word I was thinking of was sensationalism. Just making that like, oh my God, right? Like, turn to your friends. Do you know them? No, these are all your brothers and sisters in Christ. No, you're not. I don't fucking know you. You're not my brother. You're not my sister. I don't know you. You don't know me, you know? But I mean,
Yeah.
it was more than just that. There were things they were saying that I could see as a teenager feeling lost, feeling misunderstood, feeling like you have a low self-esteem, that, you know, everything feels very performative. This could speak to them. You know, there was
Yeah.
a point we were talking about how Jesus would never judge you. Jesus accepts you for who you are and what you look like. And you don't need a best friend because Jesus is your best friend.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you need friends. And Jesus is not alive. So he cannot be your best friend. You know, it was making me just feel all of these like yucky feelings again. That's like, these are children literally going through some of the hardest parts. I mean, I understand as adults we go through much heavier things, but we are emotionally and physically capable to handle those things. Sometimes teenagers
not all
go
of us
through stuff
are.
that they're not. Oh, that's true too. That's true too. But you know, I think of how susceptible that age is specifically to hearing things like that.
Yes.
It made me have the yuckiest feeling in my heart.
Yeah.
That I truly wanted to grab all those kids and be like, no, they're lying to you. Don't do this. Like, you need to have friends. You need to have a space where you can talk about things that are happening to you. You know, I kept thinking back to how much SA happens in church settings, and sitting there in that space, I could see how it could happen. There was this really charismatic, good-looking person at the front speaking in a way that it seemed like, I know where you are. I know what you're feeling. I've been there. I want to make you feel good.
You know what we call that, Kirsten?
Bullshit.
We call that grooming. It is grooming, 100%. And whether it's intentional or not, okay, here's what this person is doing. They're setting themselves up to be somebody who gets you when others don't. And what strikes me the most about what you're saying is the belonging piece, because teenagers especially want a sense of belonging. They want a sense of safety. And probably 90% of the teenagers out there, whether they have healthy parents or not, disagree with their parents and or want some space from them. And so a pastor like this, especially in a youth setting, is setting themselves up to be a surrogate parent, the person that the kids go to when they're fighting with their parents. And that is grooming, whether it's intended to have a certain outcome or not. You are trying to get this child to trust you more than they trust their own parents, especially if their parents are not religious. That's the problem I have with it. It's like, oh, if your mom and dad don't love God, if your mom and dad don't love Jesus, you can belong here. If you love Jesus, you belong here and you belong with me. I can be a mentor for you as somebody who loves Jesus. I can show you how to live. And I'm sorry, it is just grooming, period.
Megan, it gets worse. Those words were literally said. Those words were said. Every single adult volunteer there, which were several, because, you know, with 2,000 kids, there were many volunteers. Every single volunteer was hugging the children. And I could tell when there were children uncomfortable. And it made me really upset. And I know people are going to come at me for this. So, you know, it is what it is. They had a station for free haircuts, for free makeovers, So like doing your makeup, they had, you know, face painting, claw machines, ice cream stations, food trucks, all of these things completely, you know, free to the children. I could see very much that they were thinking, or other people were thinking, maybe even the volunteers and stuff, this is all very much, we're doing a good thing for maybe some of these kids who can't get their hair cut or haven't had someone care about them to do their makeup, or, you know, they can't afford to go to the claw machines, things like that. And I thought, this is so up on every single level, because these are children that maybe their parents don't listen to them. Maybe their parents haven't let them get the haircut that they want and they didn't have the money to do it. Maybe they don't go to the claw machine arcade, which was a big deal because my kids always want to go to them. You know, and they're making them feel seen, heard, loved, respected. Someone's giving them a hug, which maybe they don't get hugged at home. And I was just getting angrier and angrier as the night went on, because I saw the manipulation and I saw how many people were screaming out for love, and the church was giving it to them. They also had a station where you could sign up to be baptized, and they had a date. And I heard more than one group saying, are you going to do it? If you're going to, let's do it together. Let's sign up together. And then I was like, this is exactly like cultish mentality, cult behavior. Because these are 12, 13, 14-year-old people. And I'll be honest, most of them were female, saying, if you'll do it, I'll do it. This is what God wants. There was a station for face painting, and people were getting like fake tattoos on their arms kind of thing. And they'd be like, oh, let's get the same thing. Well, I was thinking of this Jesus cross with my favorites. Oh yeah, that's good. I'll do that too. Oh yeah, I like that scripture. And so one of them, I was like, oh, that's your favorite scripture? What does it say? And one of them, her eyes got this big because you could tell she had no clue. She was just doing what her friend wanted. And her friend was like, oh, well, it's about friendship. And, you know, my friends have gotten me through a lot, so it means a lot to me. And the other one goes, yeah, I love that scripture. And I was like, do you?
Yeah.
How do you spell Psalms? You know?
Yeah. SALMS, if anyone wants to know. Yeah, it definitely has this vibe of like, if your house isn't a safe place, this is. And I do hear what you're saying about like, maybe they thought, oh, you know, maybe their parents can't afford to get them a haircut or whatever. But the first thing I thought was, here are kids probably getting the haircut that their parents wouldn't let them get. And they're like, oh, I got it at church, you know, and so maybe it will be okay. And then with the whole, you know, face painting thing of like, oh, we're going to shame people with tattoos, but we're going to give you a temporary tattoo.
Oh,
you know, try it out. See how you like it.
I told this story to Megan off camera. We didn't realize we weren't recording, so I'll say it here. So they had face painting and like pens to draw and things like that. And there was someone that was asking, they're like, excuse me, how long is it going to last? And I was walking by, and as a joke, I was like, it's going to last forever, just like tattoos. Oh. And literally one lady was like, it can't last. No, there's no way. Oh, tattoos. Who would get a tattoo? And I was standing there in a tank top. And I was just like,
as you are.
Yeah, who would do that?
Yeah, that's weird. Who would get a tattoo?
She was like, you know, clutching her pearls, literally. And it just made me laugh because I was like, what sort of message even was that to the child, seeing like, face painting is so much fun. Don't ever get a permanent, because that shows like you're of the devil, but then publicly shaming me, basically. And not basically, that's what was going on, you know, and honestly, it didn't hurt my feelings. It made me laugh. But at the same time, I was like, what are you teaching this child? That it's okay to talk badly about someone literally standing right next to you? Like how Christ-like is that? I said what I said.
Yeah, it's also like this mentality that the way we do things is the only way to do things, because she's sending a clear message to her child that I would never get a tattoo. Therefore, you should never get a tattoo. Therefore, you
Yes.
know, it's this indoctrination. And this
Yeah.
is why I think Richard Dawkins is one of the people that talks about this, kind of a famous atheist, where he's like, it should make us all cringe when somebody says that's a Jewish child, that's a Muslim child, that's a Christian child. No, it's
Right.
not. It is a child with Jewish parents. It is a child with Muslim parents. It is a child with Christian parents. And most
Yep.
parents, let's be fair, do indoctrinate their children to some extent. I did.
Absolutely.
Okay, because it was
Yeah,
the way that I grew up. It
absolutely.
was the way that I raised. It's rare to find parents in religion who don't indoctrinate their children into the religion that they're in. Is it all
Yeah.
harmful? No. But what is harmful is to teach your children that that's the only way to see the world. It's the only way to think. It's the only
Yes.
way to believe. I would love it if more parents would teach their children about all religions and
Yes.
give them the good and bad about each one, because there is good and bad about every single religion that exists.
Yes. I think it's really good, just like any other education, to understand different cultures and different religions by, frankly, reading their spiritual books. Reading the spiritual texts as I was leaving Mormonism was really important to me, because I thought, if I base everything I believe off the Bible, Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, and Pearl of Great Price, and want to throw it all away, I won't ever find what I really think and believe critically. So I
Yeah.
started reading pretty much any spiritual text I could get my hands on, the Quran, and there were witch ebooks. I read the it's like a lesson in miracles. I can't remember what it's called, a curriculum in miracles, something like that. I read that whole thing. I was just trying to read everything I could to really see the depth of spirituality that was out there. And I still really love to do that, because how dare anybody say they have the full truth? Like,
Yeah.
unless you are God himself, you can't really say with a full knowledge that you know what's true. And how arrogant to think that you would be the one that has the full truth and everybody else doesn't get it.
Right.
Like, it bothers me so much. So I think you're right. Like, good parenting should be teaching children about the breadth of spirituality that's out there, because it is also learning about acceptance and acknowledging that there are different beliefs out there, and that does
Yeah.
become a core part of who people are. And when we understand who people are, we can accept them better.
Yes.
We can understand more empathy, more. I can't think of a better word than accepting. I'm not a thesaurus.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But,
Well, I think that, compassion plays a part of it.
Yes.
In it, because there is this tendency for people to lack compassion for people who believe differently than they do. And
Yes.
because in Mormonism, I know that it was this idea that, like, oh, that sucks that the Jewish people are so persecuted, but if they would believe in Jesus, maybe they wouldn't be so persecuted. It's victim
Yeah,
blaming. And it's,
absolutely.
it's this idea that, like, oh, how sad that so and so is going through this struggle, but they would probably struggle less if they were keeping the commandments, rather than being compassionate and saying, I want to get down on the floor with you and love you and find out what's going on and how can I help you, instead of
Yeah.
just saying, well, if you hadn't left the church, then you wouldn't be suffering right now.
How much does it bug you? Because I know it's going to be a lot, because it bugs me a lot. People are so incredibly nice to you, sicky sweet, bringing you cookies and pies and everything, until they realize that you are ex-Mormon or ex-religious and are going to reject what they're bringing to you. Like,
Yep.
the switch just is such a flip, and it's not
staggering.
even like. It really is. Like, it was something I wasn't prepared for. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Even when I have Christian neighbors or whatever, and I say, oh, well, it doesn't really matter if I'm not Christ-like because I'm not religious. Like, they treat you so differently. And it is just mind-boggling to me, because if you truly are Christian, I would think you would want to love and care for people regardless.
Isn't
and not
that
have
literally
this
What Christ did?
Do you know how many times I want to bring up? I'm like, Christ was the one that was inviting the harlots,
The robbers and the
into
hookers.
yeah, right, and flipping tables in the temple, for the
Yeah.
money changers and things like that. So how dare you not want to talk to me when you find out I'm going to reject your religious beliefs? Like,
100%. And there was this little clip from the Joe Rogan podcast not too long ago where Joe Rogan was saying, "Oh, Mormons are the nicest people.
Yeah.
They just are the nicest people I've ever met. Like they're such good people. You know, they might be brainwashed, but they're the nicest people. Like it's the nicest cult." I'm sorry, no, it's not. The only reason Mormons are nice to you is because they want you to join their church. I said what I said, and I will stand by it because
yes,
do this little experiment. If your Mormon friends and neighbors are nice to you, think about this. Have you ever rejected the Book of Mormon? Have you ever said, "No, I will not go to church with you"? Or have you left that door open? Because as soon as you close that door, they will disappear 100%.
yes,
The same thing happened with me, with missionaries, with family members. As long as they thought there was a chance I might come back, they were so nice to me. And as soon as
Yep.
I said, "No, not only will I not come back, but I am staunchly anti-Mormon," crickets. No more door knocks,
Megan,
no more phone calls, no more cookies, no more pies. It's like they are only nice to you when they think there's a chance.
how perfectly represented was that when we wore our ex-Mormon snark hats in Utah? We were treated
100%.
so poorly. We got the meanest looks. Our waitress treated us like we were literal scum. Like she
Yep.
was so rude to us. She gave me the nastiest drink on the planet. And I guarantee in the back, they were like, who cares? She's probably a
Yes.
bitch anyway, you know?
And people passing by us on the street or in the hallways would see ex-Mormon on our hat or our t-shirt and literally
And hide their children. Do you remember they like turned their kids away from us?
"Oh no, don't look at the ex-Mormons."
Well,
And it's like, okay, listen, St. George, Utah, okay? It's more Mormon than Salt Lake City, Utah, okay? And there is a post-Mormon conference going on. And there's only like 6 restaurants in this area. And so if you're in St. George during this weekend, it's the same weekend every single year. You have to know it's coming around. Like,
yeah.
oh, here come the ex-Mormons again. So just don't go out. Then you don't have to be exposed to our dirty, wicked ways.
Well, I mean, that's a perfect segue too into more of what I experienced at this mega church. So, I'm at this mega church. My child is with me, and the way they were treated versus the way I was treated was very interesting. People were kind to me. I will say that. But there was a difference because I'm pretty sure they could see the vibe that I did not care to join. I had no plans of joining. I'm covered in tattoos. There probably were a few snarky comments from me. I'm not going to lie. However, the love bombing on my child was insane to me, not just from the adults, but also from the other youth. Phone numbers were exchanged, invitations to things. My child is very artsy. That was picked up on pretty quickly. My child was talking about some of their interests, and right away there was invitations to, "Oh, well, we have this group that does this on Wednesday nights. Oh, we do this on these. Give me your number. Let's see what we can do." And my child was grinning so big. "Oh, mom, they want me to do this, this, and this." And once we got in the car, I had a conversation. I was like, I am so glad that you felt really seen. And I'm really glad, that you had these conversations. And I straight up said, I want you to know that sometimes these invitations are given because they want you to be a part of their church and they want to talk to you about Jesus and the Bible and God and things like that. And I said, if you enjoy that or you feel like this is something you want to participate in, I will not stop you because I believe everyone has a right to their own spirituality. And they kind of were like, "Really?" And I said, "Yes. And I'm so sorry that you're seeing this right now because it can be very manipulative." And they kind of were like him and hawing about it. And I said, again, if you want to go, I just really want you to keep an open mindset that this can be manipulative behavior to get you to join their group, not necessarily because they really love and care about you as a person. I said, and that can feel really, really good. So I just want you to keep talking to me about it, keep an open mind, and we'll go from there, because at the end of the day, I want you to have friends and be happy. But I don't want there to be an underlying reason behind it that is not a good intention. And so we had a really good conversation about that. I don't know where it's going to land. Again, if my child wants to go and be part of it, at the end of the day, I want them to be happy. I just don't want to put them in unsafe spaces. And unfortunately, in my past, I have seen religion be an unsafe space.
Yes. And the good thing is you're having these conversations with them now, because unsafe spaces exist everywhere. And so our children need to be taught about manipulation, not just spiritual manipulation or religious manipulation, but just manipulation in general. People, our children need to know what grooming is. And they need to know what tactics manipulators use to try and pull them in, because it happens everywhere. And so that's why I say, I'm not anti-religious, because I think there are things about religion that can be good for some people, but I'm anti-manipulation. I'm anti-grooming, I'm anti-controlling, I'm anti-coercive control. So I want my children to know that these are tactics that are used not only by churches, but by predators, and by even some, cliques and groups in schools and stuff like that. They shame you. That's what peer pressure is. They shame you into not conforming or not behaving the way that they want you to. And so one of the things I love is that my youngest daughter, has very much this F you attitude of I don't care if you don't like the way that I wear my hair. I don't care if you don't like that I'm not going to participate in your gossipy BS. I love that about her. She even said to me one time, I was picking her up from school, and she said, sometimes I wish I would take my own advice. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, I always tell my friends, don't change who you are for a boy and blah, blah, blah. And don't try to fit in and blah, blah, blah. And then, found myself doing something similar today. And I was like, oh, so we're not.
I think we all have. I mean, we all have done that, because sometimes your brain knows and your heart does not follow that. I mean, you and I probably overstand that. So
we overstand. It's the same thing with setting boundaries. You and I were having a conversation yesterday about, setting boundaries for our personal space and our personal time. I'm really good at coaching other people on how to do that. And I enjoy coaching other people on how to do it. Sometimes I'm not the best at it. I do set my boundaries, but sometimes I let it go a little longer than I should. And then I always regret it,
You know what? I mean, we don't need to share the whole circumstances, but I do want to put that out there to show that, me and Megan are human. Megan was sharing something with me, and I said, what the hell is wrong with you? Were you high? And she started laughing. She's like, no, I was drunk. We're joking. Because, there are times where, your guards can be a little bit down. Maybe you are, enjoying some late night gardening, or, enjoying one of my recipes, perhaps.
Exactly.
But and you do fall back into those same old patterns, because it doesn't matter if you are 15 years old or you are 50 years old. The things that you are taught in childhood, i.e. in the Mormon religion, we're told to make ourselves small, to put others' needs above our own, because that's Christ-like.
Yep.
It is so easy to allow yourself to be stepped on, to have boundaries crossed, to put yourself in a place that is not healthy. And at the end of the day, we want better for our children. Yes. And because that is so ingrained in religious communities, be it Mormonism, be it Judaism, be it a mega church, making yourself small and letting people cross your boundaries for the greater good, or being Christ-like, or in service of others, or however you want to put it, that is not healthy. And I don't want my children to learn that.
Yes.
Full stop. I do not want my children to believe that that is acceptable behavior, because it is not.
Yes.
The end.
I have one more group that I want to talk about that fits this mold. And then I want to talk about why some religious beliefs are harmful. So what I'm going to say first is, before we leave this topic, is that the ex-Mormon space can be a manipulative and controlling space too. The ex-Mormon group can be a toxic group as well. And
I agree.
the sooner that you learn to have this sort of autonomy of like, I don't need a group to belong to. What I need is to belong to myself, for me to be secure
Yes.
in who I am and what I think and how I feel, so that when I interact with the ex-Mormon space, I do it in a way that's healthy for me. I do it in a
Yes.
way that is fulfilling to me. I do find some
Yeah.
community here, and I find wonderful collaboration with people with shared experiences, and that can be very valuable. What I
Yeah.
find troubling about the ex-Mormon space is that a lot of men leave patriarchy, but they leave the Mormon church, but they don't leave the patriarchy piece behind. That's what
Yes.
I find troubling. And even the best of men, which I'm friends with many wonderful men in the post-Mormon space, I'm also friends with some who have some lingering patriarchy in them. And it can be very
100% agree. 1,000,000,000% agree. You
yeah.
can be a
And
wonderful person with good intentions and still not recognize the patriarchal grip. And yes, I use that word specifically, that you are choking out the women in this space.
yeah.
You have very different lived experiences than we have. That
Yeah.
does not make yours bad or good or whatever. But it's so ingrained to say what you think is right, to correct people, to speak over people. Like, I could go on.
Yeah.
We still love you and still are very annoyed by your behavior. I said what I said.
What I love though, is I think that the majority of the post-Mormon men, not all, but the majority of the post-Mormon men whom I have approached with kindness and love and said, I love you so much. I think you're a wonderful person. This behavior that you do really is troubling to me. And I think it's a leftover of this patriarchal order that you used to
Yes.
belong to. And I just want you to consider there's another way to interact. The
Yes.
majority of the men that I've approached in that way with kindness and with love have been very responsive
I
and
also
very
agree with that.
willing to like check their behavior and be like, you know what, you're probably right about that. I didn't realize. One such example that I will give you, dear friend of mine,
Yes.
very sweet man, very kind. We were having a conversation in a space that was not post-Mormon at all.
Mhm.
And he commented on the clothing choice of a woman, saying something about her shorts being too short or something like that. And
Yeah.
I just said very kindly, as a man, it's not a good idea for you to be commenting on women's clothing choices. And
Yep.
also, it's not okay to have an idea that someone is less valuable because they choose to show more of their skin.
Yep.
It could just be that they're post-Mormon or they're post-religious, and they were told that they had to cover up their entire lives, and now they're enjoying not having to do that. And they should absolutely be able and free to do that without getting judged by people.
Yes.
And to
Yep.
this man's credit, he really took what I had to say to heart. And I believe he was genuine about that. And I really appreciated that. I appreciate so much all people who are open-minded, but especially men in the post-Mormon space who are willing to listen to the voices of women, because our experience
Yes.
was very different.
And I will say, because of course I will, there are men in the post-Mormon space who are not even willing to listen to that conversation.
Exactly.
And I still like them. I will say that too. Maybe it's so ingrained that we're like, we kind of roll our eyes and move on.
Yeah.
But it is there. And I am grateful that you said something, Megan, because it's something that does bother me a lot. Megan knows I have much more loud opinions than Megan does about it, simply because I think also in the business that I'm in, I get hit with patriarchy so hard on a daily basis that I have a very, very low tolerance for it now.
As do I, Kirsten, as you know.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this with my full chest. Maybe we'll even clip this. Women do not come in our comments to correct us. We have women who come in our space that will say, I am so sad that you seem so angry. I am so sad that you're going to hell. We get a lot. I'm so
Disappointed.
sad. I'm disappointed. You are
Yeah.
two beautiful women using your voices for evil. You know, we get things like that. The only ones that come in our comment to correct us, and yes, some of it are regular viewers and we adore you, but who come to correct us, to tell us that we misquoted, to say we don't know the Bible, to give us sources.
And
to
also
tell
to
us
say that we must have never been faithful.
we must have never been
We
faithful.
never had
That is a
true testimonies.
that is a specifically male comment. That
Yeah.
one we got recently, which I literally laughed so hard, that says, "You look like you've never fasted."
Oh my god. That makes me think of Julia. Sorry for the ADHD moment, but that makes me think of Julia Roberts in the Hugh Grant movie Notting Hill.
Notting
where
Hill, yeah.
she's talking about, why people should feel sorry for her. And she's like, so I've been on a diet basically every day since I was 23 years old. And that's what it's like for women. We're basically on a diet every day. So shut up.
Well, I responded to the comment and I said, this made me laugh out loud because I can think if the only thing you had to say about this video was that we look like we've never fasted, then you're mad just to be mad and frankly
Yes.
not very creative. And I was like,
Yes.
so you know what? I'm not even upset by this comment.
Yeah.
So anyways, I mean, I'm just saying like patriarchy is so deeply embedded. And yes, we appreciate and love men against our will. I said what I said. If I could be gay, I would be gayer. I wish I was a lesbian. Unfortunately, I am married to a man and I find him very attractive.
You have to settle for only being half gay.
I'm trying really hard. I've said if I was ever going to cheat on John, it's going to be with a woman because I can't deal with another man, frankly. And I don't want this to come as like I hate men or whatever, but I am glad that Megan has said this because it is what it is. Like, do better, be better because you can. Because you can. And it
Can I
is
say
a choice.
one more?
Please.
Yes, you can choose to act differently than you always have.
Yes.
I also will say that there are many post-Mormon men who feel entitled to certain treatment by women. They feel entitled to be accepted. Have their advances accepted and stuff like that. You don't have to take that crap. I just want to say one more statement about comments in our comment section and also on my other channel. I think this happened on my other channel where I was posting something it was probably one of the, I don't know, it was something about the church. Maybe it was about finances. I can't remember exactly what it was, but sure. I was watching comments come in real time after the video had finished its premiere. And this one gentleman commented something about put a shirt on. I was wearing a tank top, but it was like a wide tank top with a V-neck. And his comment was something about, first of all, put a shirt on. And I was about to respond to it, but I decided not to. I just didn't. I was like, I sometimes just let that stuff simmer until I come up with something really snarky that I want to say. And
Megan is better than me. I often respond in the moment and then screenshot it later. And I was like, look what I put. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Oh, well, it's already out there.
Yeah. About 5 minutes later, this same commenter had a very long comment about the content of my video. And I was going to go back to the original comment and say, oh, so the only thing that you have to say about my entire video is about my appearance, not about the content. And then he did post a content comment. So I was like, oh, I was going to go back to the other comment. He had deleted it. So the one about put a shirt on was gone. And he thought better and decided to make a different comment.
I watched the whole video and it was great, but also your shoulders were distracted at first.
Yes. So, props to that commenter for going back and deleting the one. Kirsten,
No.
maybe he was learning to do better because he deleted the one about my appearance. So I'm going to give him credit for that.
You know what? You have changed my mind, Megan. That doesn't happen often. No, I'm kidding. Okay, I'm going to say this too, just because I want it out there, because I heard it this week. I don't remember what day, and I loved it. I actually wrote it down on a notebook, and I taped it to my my screen at work. Do not be around people who are not curious, because they are not intelligent. Someone who is willing to ask questions and be curious is a sign of intelligence. So the whole video, it made me laugh because it was actually like a marriage family therapist or whatever, counselor. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
LMFC or whatever it is.
Lots of initials after the name.
Right. And they deserve every
Probably-
single one of them.
Probably
It's
LMFT.
You know what I'm saying. It was a licensed person. So this is not coming out of my butt. But she was saying, if someone is not curious, they are not intelligent, and you don't need to put up with them. She's like, it's okay to block those people. It's okay to stop dating those people. It's okay to ghost those people, you know, if that's what you need, because that is
100%.
someone who is never going to be willing to see your perspective on things. And that is not someone you want to spend your time with. And it really kind of gave me this paradigm shift this week, specifically, just, you know, at work, things are stressful, and, you know, and it made me realize that it's okay to let people go or not let them take up space in my mind when they show me that they're not willing to have any sort of curiosity about my thoughts, opinions, feelings, ideas, which seems like something that is very like, of course. And I'm 41 years old. I should have realized this. But having it said in those words for some reason really got to me this week, because I thought, of course.
Yes.
Of course, I don't need to take any merit or any flack or any bullshit opinion from someone who is obviously not willing to be curious about any new information, because the whole point of improving your life, improving yourself, improving your knowledge is to get curious about other people's experiences and thoughts, feelings, ideas. So I don't know. That's kind of went off on a tangent, but
no, it's a great direction for us to go, because it is about learning to accept new ideas and learning to give validity to other people's ideas and experiences. Just because it wasn't your experience doesn't mean that their experience is invalid. And that's what we get so often from Mormon men, is that, you know, the church never harmed you. Oh, the church doesn't do this. Oh, the church doesn't do that. Well, guess what? I freaking experienced it. So yes, they do. It just means you haven't experienced it. There are women in the church who say that they don't feel disrespected in the church. There are women in the church who say they feel valued in the church. There are women in the church who say they've never been abused. They've never been blah, 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 whatever. I would argue that they have been devalued and disrespected and dishonored and abused. They just don't know it yet. And I was in exactly the same boat. It wasn't until I learned about the wheel of power and control that I realized I was in a coercive control marriage. I was like, oh my gosh, this is devastating. I've been abused. You know, I didn't realize it. Which kind of brings me, sorry.
No, I was going to say, you and I can speak on that, because that was also our experience. We felt like women were valued and held up on a pedestal and didn't need the priesthood and all of these things. And until you take a step back and you're like, wait, what? Do you see that the harm it's actually causing? And, you know, this goes back to me not wanting to raise my children with religion, because I don't want that pre-programming in them.
Yes.
You know, I do not want them ever to have to go through the experience of realizing they have been mistreated or realizing they've been devalued. And that goes for my sons as much as my daughters.
Yes.
It really does.
100%.
I do not want to raise another white hetero male that is going to carry the mantle of patriarchy. I really, really, really don't. And so I have heard my son say things. He is young. He is my youngest, you know, just barely in middle school. And when I hear him say things that seem even vaguely patriarchal to me, I cut it off right away, and I'll say, why do you feel that way? Why are you saying these words? Think about if that was your sister. Think about your mother. You
Yeah.
know, do you see dad treat me that way? Do you know, and I know I'm not a perfect parent, and I am trying, and sometimes he'll kind of laugh at me, but I do feel hope that I am having those conversations that I never had, and was never
Right.
shown that there was another
Right.
way other than to be a submissive wife. And
Mhm.
now I'm saying to my children, what education do you want? Wouldn't you love to have a smart wife? Wouldn't you love to have a really smart partner that could teach you things? Isn't that cool? Don't you love when you and I go on walks and we talk about science? Aren't you glad mom knows about science? You know why? Because mom went to college, you know, and
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, it seems silly as I'm saying it out loud, but also those were not chats I ever had with my family.
Yeah.
That was not
No.
something that I was even
Mm-mm.
allowed to talk about. It was, if you go to college, great, but you're going to be a mom.
Yes. And it
The
was
end.
also never, there was never a discussion about find somebody who treats you with kindness and respect. It was find somebody who will take you to the temple, period. You know,
Yes.
which brings
Yep.
me to the next thing, and maybe the last thing, that the main reason why I don't want my kids to be raised in a religion, in a particular religion, or in a religious environment, because of the messaging that they get all day, every day. Your son is getting messaging, our kids they're all getting messaging all day long. But specifically, your son is getting messaging all day, every day, that it is okay to treat women poorly, and that they deserve
Yes.
it. They deserve whatever it is that, you know, they're entitled to, especially, you know, white men. And
Yes.
it's, you have to combat those messages if you want to have a person who treats women with kindness and respect. You are having those conversations. And so I'm grateful to you. Also, when you were talking about that, I just like had this moment of like, I'm so grateful that despite my shortcomings, both of my sons are very respectful to women. And my older son, I've shared before, the reason he left the church at 14 was because he saw how disrespected I was and how disrespected his sisters were. And he didn't want to be a part of that. So I'm grateful that they were kind of born with something like that already, because I don't think that was my parenting that did that. Especially my older son. Oops, hang on. Sorry.
Okay.
But this keeps sticking in my mind because I hear it so often when I go to play for the Lutheran Church, which I have nothing against the Lutheran people. I think they're lovely people. It's a beautiful church. I feel so much warmth and community there. However, every single service, the head pastor says at some point during the service, if we do not acknowledge that we are sinful, the truth is not in us and we deceive ourselves. And every time I hear that, I have to remind myself, I am not a sinful being.
No.
I am not inherently bad. I don't need to go to a priest to confess my sins in order to be accepted by God or Jesus. I am a good person. I am inherently a kind and generous and honest and decent human being. So for some religion to tell me that I was born with this darkness in my heart, I hate that. I reject that.
Yeah.
That is not true. I am made of stardust. I am made of these glorious particles that exist in the universe. And so is everybody on the planet. We are all made from the same material, and we are inherently glorious beings. It is a freaking miracle that we exist right now. And I don't attribute that necessarily to a higher power. I attribute it to the universe, whatever that means. So inherently, I am a being of light. I am a beautiful human. Please don't come to me and tell me that I have some inherent darkness in me that can only be removed if I go through somebody else to get to some deity or some higher being.
Yes. I also want you to know, Megan, that was absolutely beautiful. And the snarkian in me had so many snarky comments as you were saying it.
Please say them now.
You were like, I am a glorious being made in the universe. And I was like, Nuh-uh, you're just a machine in the matrix.
I really am just a meat stick,
And
spinning through
also,
space, making
and I
mouth
was like,
sounds.
you might be made of stardust, but I've made of edible glitter.
Well, I'm not saying my stardust isn't edible. Also, I think it is. We should probably
Oh!
cut that out.
I'm not. I'm leaving it. I'm leaving it. I also wanted to say, I hate when people will say that, human nature is inherently evil. I 1,000 million 10 toes down percent disagree. Have you ever held a baby in your arms and thought, this baby is evil? Well, I'm sure there are people out there.
Yes, there are mentally ill
but-
people out there who think that. Yes.
But also, how many, like, you see it on TikTok and Instagram, all these things, people showing like little children in like kindergarten, first grade, and they'll say, like, what's the difference between you two? And it's a black child and a white child. And they'll be like, well, he doesn't wear glasses. Like racism is taught. Bigotry is taught.
Yep.
Stealing is taught. Like, I really don't think there's a child that's like, bleh. Yes, you might want a toy and you take it, but I don't think the malintent to steal and harm someone else is in someone. It's taught. I said what I said. Realizing that you can take from someone else for gain is taught,
Yes, and not care.
things.
And that's the lack of compassion piece. It's like not caring about the consequence for the person that you took from. And it doesn't just have to be, a material thing, a car, a purse, a wallet, whatever. Stealing their opportunity, stealing their joy, stealing their sense of self-worth. That is still stealing from somebody. Putting somebody down and trying to make them feel bad about themselves in order to make yourself feel better. All of those things are taught to children.
Megan, just on that same line, how many times have we heard parents? I'm sure you heard this or knew of it as a teacher. There's no way you didn't. I don't care if my kid gets in a fight as long as they win it.
Yep.
Or if someone bullies my kid, it's going to be the last time because I've taught them to beat their ass. That is taught. We are not taught to make fun of people, or excuse me. We are not inherently inside of us feeling a need to be mean to others. I think, people might disagree. I'm fine with that. But all of this meanness and, awful thinking and behavior is stuff we mirror and see in other people. There was a study, I looked more into it, it was in 2016 or 2015, excuse me, that they were saying that children that are not religious are more empathetic than children who are religious. And I looked more into it and more studies were done and it wasn't really a correlation there. However, one thing that was proven time and time again is that children in religion were more accepting of punishment in that they would agree that people who do things that are wrong or other children who did things that were wrong in their eyes wanted those children to be punished. Mm-hmm. And I do think that is taught in religion. The idea of sin and God punishing you and sending you to hell and being burned for eternity, that is inherently a religious teaching. That's not something a 2-year-old is going to think. That's not something maybe even a 5-year-old is going to think if they hadn't been told it was a thing. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be this kind of teaching doesn't have to be religious based either. It is an inherent belief in one's own value and worth. You can't love other people if you don't love yourself. And that's where the lack of compassion comes from. People who are not compassionate towards others are not compassionate towards themselves either. And people who are mean to other people are mean to themselves too. And so there are two things that changed the way that I think about parenting. And one was that realizing that the reason my mother was not compassionate to me is because she was not compassionate to herself. She could not give me compassion because she had no self-compassion. And so I will say, you cannot be a good parent until you really love yourself. It's really hard to love your children because Our children
Yes.
mirror back to us all of the mistakes and shortcomings that we made when we were children. And all of the parts that we dislike about ourselves show up in our kids. And that's why, especially teenagers and parents have so much friction, is because parents see in their teenagers the shortcomings or the missed opportunities or the bad behavior, or, you know, all of the bullying experiences that they went through. They start seeing these things happening either to their own kids and they have unhealed wounds, or their kid starts acting like they did when they were that age. And again, the unhealed wounds of that come back. So
Yes.
it was that concept. And the other one was something that Brene Brown said, that a woman cannot be a good mother until she stops being an obedient daughter. And I think behind that is the idea that if you're more concerned with your mother or your parents approving of your parenting than you are about what's the right way to parent your child, then you're not doing it right, unfortunately. You know,
Absolutely.
if I was more worried about my mom accepting my parenting than I was about what my children needed, we would all still be in the church right now. And my kids would be getting a lot of harmful messaging about who they are and how they fall short. I would much rather praise my kids for the beautiful things that they do, for the kindness that they show to others, than to tell them that even though they did a good thing, it wasn't good enough until you do the next good thing. You have to keep doing good things in order to be acceptable.
Absolutely. There's always the next milestone. I think especially in the LDS Church, you know, we have the covenant path. And if you don't check those boxes, I laugh because we had a comment from a man who said, I referred to, you know, I was talking about my testimony. I said, you know, I checked the boxes. I did everything right. And he said, that's the problem with you. You saw it as checking boxes. And it made me feel very sad for every child still in the church, because I thought, that's what it is. You see it as, if I don't check these boxes, I'm not worthy. And you might feel wholeheartedly that you believe in the church, you believe in this religion, you believe what God wants, and yet there is still a box to be checked. And I think you know this better than anyone, Megan. Being told you weren't able to go and get your endowment because your husband was not a worthy member of the church. You felt that box being unchecked as a huge hole in your heart. I don't want to speak for you, but you know, we've had so many conversations about it that I know that's how you felt, because I guarantee you that's how I would have felt. I didn't serve a mission, and I felt that. And a mission isn't even required.
Right. Not only did I feel that 100% what you're saying, but I was treated differently because I didn't have that box checked. This man who says you saw it as checking boxes, tell that to any young man who has not served a mission. Tell it to any person who doesn't get married in the temple, whether they intend to or not. Like, not even talking about someone in my situation where I chose to marry someone who was not Mormon. Tell it to somebody who was not proposed to by a return missionary and waited forever to get proposed to, because that's the only way that they could be acceptable. Tell them it's about box checking. Tell it to the childless couple who's not able to have children. Tell them it's not about box checking. I 100% reject that. We frame it as box checking because there is a literal list of things you have to do. And if you don't check all the boxes, you are not accepted. You are not acceptable until you do check the box.
Make it not even that. You can't go to the highest level of the celestial kingdom if those literal things are not done. That is a fucking box to be checked, or you can't go to heaven. That is what they're saying. If you are not a tithe payer, if you're not married in the temple, if you do not have posterity, whether in this life or the next life or whatever the hell they want to call it, if you are not polygamist bearing wife or husband, if you know, if you're not, you don't have the Melchizedek priesthood, if you don't have your endowment, if you don't, there are all these boxes that literally have to be checked to be in the highest level of heaven. And if you're not there, you will be miserable because either you'll have no genitals, or you can't see your family, or it's not going to be as pretty, or you will be in outer darkness, which I can only imagine is just like where there is no light at all. Even a candle won't be seen. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. You have to be alone
it is
forever and ever.
right. It is a
Kirsten,
list, and there are things to do that I think you should put a check next to. I don't know.
So we have a couple of clips that we want to share with you that hopefully we don't get any sort of copyright violation for this, because there are some famous quotes and ideas out there that atheist people have talked about. One of my favorite ones is the idea that you absolutely can raise your children with morality, even if you don't raise them in religion. And in fact, you know, sometimes the idea of, you know, giving them morals and values that have nothing to do with a religion in particular saves them from the tripping up of the pitfalls of leaving that religion and then wondering, what do I value? And having to rebuild that all for
Yes.
yourself. I have some very dear friends who raised their children without religion. I was lucky enough to be a teacher to two of them, just fantastic human beings. And I often used that as an example of my cognitive dissonance of, you know, people in the church saying that, you know, the most Christ-like people that they know, or the leaders of the church or whatever. And I'm like, really? Because some of the most Christ-like people that I know are this family right here, who taught their kids how to love and care for people and treat people with kindness and respect without any religious system at all. So how does that work?
Yeah.
You know,
I completely agree. That was kind of my own feeling as well as I was leaving the church. I actually, guys, we said it here first. I've been working on a little bit of a book, of a memoir. I will not tell you the title because I think it's really good. But the whole premise, at least the beginning of it, is that what made me want to leave the church is I was having a horrifically hard time, you know, my marriage with my children and things like that. And I had the feeling that so many things in my life that were hard stemmed directly from teachings of the Mormon religion. And some of my favorite people, my mentors, people I looked up to, I started actually making a list of people I wanted to be like, because I was trying so hard to figure out who I was. And every single person on that list was not LDS. And that made me start to think, okay, so if these are people I want to be like, why am I wanting to be part of this group that has taught me so many harmful things that have hurt me deeply? But that being said, is this clip that we're about to show talks about, you know, having morality outside of religion. And when I saw this clip, it hit me so hard that I did share it on social media back in the day when I had social media. And I got the most visceral response from someone I was very close to, and told me I had no right to share this, and felt basically that I was shaming them for raising their child or their children in religion. And all I sent back was, we have not talked for X amount of years. You have no idea who I am now or who my children are. And the fact that you feel this way might say more about you than it does about me. And I was then blocked. So
I will say it again, Kirsten. No one is meaner to us in the comments than faithful Christians. No one is meaner to us. No one is more hateful. No one throws us more shade. No one shames us more than faithful Mormons and other Christians who cannot handle pushback on their beliefs.
Correct. So I just want you guys to be thinking about that as we play this clip.
Yeah. I really hope that it doesn't, that we don't have to remove it. Yes.
I really hope so too.
Share.
I am.
And you don't believe in an afterlife?
I don't.
If you don't believe in heaven and hell and all that, why don't you just go around as much as you want?
I do.
What?
I do go around as much as I want, which is not at all.
Because he's got a conscience.
If death is just the end, what's the point?
What's the point in what?
Living. Might as well just kill self.
So if you're watching a movie and you're really enjoying it and someone points out that this will end eventually, do you just go, oh, forget it then, what's the point, and just turn it off?
No, because I can watch it again.
I think life is precious because you can't watch it again. I mean, you can believe in an afterlife if that makes you feel better. Doesn't mean it's true. But once you realise you're not going to be around forever, I think that's what makes life so magical. One day you'll eat your last meal, smell your last flower, hug your friend for the very last time. You might not know it's the last time. So that's why you should do everything you love with passion. Treasure the few years you've got, because that's all there is.
The whole idea is that, you know, if you don't have religion, then you would go around hurting people all the time. And he's like, I do. I hurt people as much as I want, which is none, because I have a conscience. And, you know, if there's no afterlife, then what's the point? And he, you know, expresses exactly the way I feel. And I've said this before, it comes from Britt Hartley, is that when I go to the beach, I build sandcastles and I know that it's not going to last. It's going to get washed away. And the next time I come back to the beach, it's not going to be there. It's a temporary thing. But I'm not going to say, oh, why should I build a sandcastle with my grandson? It's just going to be gone in half an hour. I'm like savoring that time with him, building something that is impermanent. And that's the way I feel about this too. Not believing in an afterlife made me savor all of these experiences even more. And also, I see in so many Mormon people that they are looking so forward to the next life that they don't value this one as much. They're like, well, the next one's going to be so much better, so it's okay if I just leave this one.
On the same note, with I think anybody who is religious, they look so forward to Jesus's second coming and, you know, the end of times and all these things, that they don't care what's going on right now. I mean, I just watched something from is it Kara Nuance Ho? I always just call her Nuance Ho.
Kara Burrell, yeah.
Kara Burrell, yes. That she said that she's been seeing more and more with the war going on in Iran, a lot of LDS people justifying it in that, oh, now it will be open to missionaries. Oh, think of all, you know, the good that will come from this. And they're not thinking about people who are losing their life right now, people who are losing family members, people that cannot afford to put gas in their car right now because it's up over $1 than it was, you know. I'm talking to people every single day that have severe worries about the future, their retirement, what's happening to their accounts. You know, again, not to go down the money road, I apologize, but they are so looking forward to whatever is going to push the religious agenda forward. They're not thinking about the harm that is happening right now in their face, in their home, in their neighbor's home, you know, in their own ward or state. They're not recognizing it. And, you know, to your point earlier, they're not recognizing the harm it's doing to them personally, because all they care about is what is going to happen when Jesus comes.
Yes. And
I think that is very harmful. I think that is very harmful.
I do too. And we did a whole episode about end time beliefs and how harmful they are. But this is one of them, that Mormons believe that things have to get so much worse before Jesus comes that they're like, well, another war, that's just a sign Jesus is coming. Oh, another calamity. Oh, it's just a sign Jesus is coming. Oh, these people died in the flood. Well, it had to happen because, you know, there have to be earthquakes and floods and calamities before Jesus comes. And all of this is just ushering in the second coming. And I'm sorry, but that shows, again, a lack of compassion for the people who are going through these horrible things in war-torn countries and because of natural disasters, because they believe it's all necessary to Jesus's second coming. And it's like, well, at least they get to go to heaven, rather than thinking how awful that is that they lost their life in such a horrific way. We could go down a whole rabbit hole. And I think we should definitely do an episode about the Bible and the way that God treats his children. because we were talking about that at the beginning about what an awful, miserable, horrible
Yes.
parent God is. That's a whole rabbit hole for another time. But that brings us to the second clip that you want to share. Go ahead, though.
Yes, but on that same note, I also want to say there are so many times I have wanted to say, when I see these clips of people talking about the end times, I really want to say, what if he doesn't come? What if he doesn't come? I really, really, truly want them to look at it. Just have that, thought experiment. But what if he doesn't? What if he doesn't? Think about that. I mean, you and I think about that, and people out of religion. But it's literally, what are you doing and what is going on in your life? How do you feel? How do your children feel? How do your parents feel? How do your neighbors? What if he doesn't? You are causing harm. And I don't think they can mentally go there.
I will also say the church taught me to be a better person too. A lot of who I am stems from things that I did learn in Mormonism, like doing the right thing even when it's difficult. The problem that I have is that the words and the actions of the leaders do not match, and they do not do the difficult thing. They don't do the right thing when it's difficult. They do the wrong thing because it's easier. And so,
or it makes the church look better. I mean, I haven't shared this yet. I told you though, I bought David Archuleta's book. It is on my list since I still need to finish the Mormon Garments one. But there was a part that I saw him talking about where, he met with Elder Ballard, and M. Russell Ballard told him that he had never really sat down and had a conversation with a person of the LGBTQIA plus community. Sorry, my brain is turning
homosexuals.
off. Exactly. He had never had a conversation with them, and he was 90 years old, and they are making policy about these individuals' lives without ever even having a conversation with one. So
I guarantee you Boyd K. Packer did have conversation with LGBTQIA plus people, and he just didn't know it because he didn't know it. But I agree with you 100%. Yeah. Like, these men are so out of touch with what it's like to be an ordinary member. And yet they're making policy for all of these people whose lives are vastly different than theirs. And they could not possibly know what their experiences are like because they don't have time to talk to the regular people. They don't.
Yeah. Even if they do have time, they wouldn't. I mean, let's call a spade, man.
Well, yes. Definitely, because Kirsten, you and I have talked about this before. When they get a letter from a regular old member, which, by the way, it has to go through all these different filters before it even sees the desk of a real general authority. Yeah. What do? They read the letter, they laugh about it, and then they tell the person to go talk to their bishop.
And that is not like they have even said in conference that they've referred them back to their bishop.
100% of the time. And you know what would be really cool? They'll never do this, but what would be really cool is if they were to be compassionate enough where they would say, I would like to know what the experience of a divorced female is like in the church. Let's get some divorced females and have a panel discussion with them and see what they're thinking about. Let's even, they harp so much, especially freaking Tommy Monson, on the widows and the orphans. Let's bring some widows and some orphans into the church headquarters and have conversations with them and see if what we're doing is enough. Because, the widows and the fatherless are mentioned multiple times in the scriptures. So we should be thinking about them. Yeah, that's not something that's ever going to happen because they don't freaking care.
They do not. Us with our lady brains, all we're going to do is complain and be mad.
That's right. And then they'll tell us to go back home and cook some dinner and be a happy wife.
Exactly. I mean, we could go on and on forever. But I mean, end of the day, I'm grateful my kids are not Mormon. I'm grateful that most of them do not remember the LDS Church at all. I am grateful that they don't even know what we talk about on this podcast half the time. Whenever I have brought anything up, they will just laugh their butts off about it. And I'm very, very grateful for that. Yeah. And going to other religious experiences, specifically this one at the mega church recently, I'll be honest, I've been to that church multiple times before, especially when my kids were younger. I have volunteered there before. Well, I put volunteer in quotes because they hired people that I worked with. It was volunteer organization, but we've gone there and done things. Specifically, John has done it as a stormtrooper for one of their I don't know, Christmas things. They had stormtroopers come on stage. I don't know what for, but
It's a
that's
very,
neither here nor
very
there.
merry empire. I don't know.
I don't know. They have Cirque du Soleil acts and everything. So all of that being said, I sent Megan this clip that when I first saw it, I laughed my butt off about it. And now that I found it again, I told Megan we have to show it because I think this is the epitome of a mega church. They put it on their TikTok. I think the video I sent Megan was just a reaction to it. I hope this also doesn't get us in trouble. But regardless, I think we need to show it so people can just have a nice laugh after hearing us rant about religion for an hour and a half.
It's also another advocacy for the idea of like stepping back and looking at your belief system from an outsider's perspective, because I'm sure that there were a lot of people in this mega church who heard this dude and they were like, yes, Lord Jesus. Yes, Lord Jesus. While in the meantime, there probably was somebody standing in the back going, what the f- is this guy talking about? So
yes, here we go.
Take it for what you will.
And please enjoy, because I laughed so hard. And when I showed it to my husband, he literally did this.
It's the most unhinged yet.
Nothing's hidden.
Especially not your hair.
The theater room of your soul and sees everything that goes across your screen, guys.
See where this is going?
Your whole pornography thing, you think like no one knows it? God's watching it with you. He waits till you reach climax.
No.
Just tell you to stop.
God, if he only knew me. If he only knew me. If he only desired to know me, I would be his climax.
No.
Brother, are you okay? What is wrong with you?
He's not mad.
I kind of wish he was. I don't like that he's indifferent to this.
He just sees it. He sees it.
Ew.
In the frenzy and in the heat of a husband that is cheating on his wife.
No.
He sees it. He's right there in bed with you.
No.
He's right there in bed with you, and he's seeing it all. He's watching it.
Stop. Stop.
He is watching you look into the woman that you're not in covenant with. He is watching through your eyes, through your frenzy, through your passion, through you thinking that that's your life. And he is all the while in your heart saying, this is not who I created you to be.
They're not okay, dude. And they're getting more unwell by the day. Oh my God. I've shared a lot of unhinged mega past.
So I really wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, she desired all of us to receive it, and we are all now worse off for having seen it. But this is what it's like out there. There are literally people preaching this kind of crap. It's so awful. I just, oh God. It was bad enough.
You're telling me that you don't want to have God watching you when you like.
No, I really don't want anyone watching me. But especially not. Hey, if that's your thing, we don't kink shame here.
Exactly.
But especially not some imaginary sky daddy that's like, oh, I wish she knew me. I wish I was her client. No. There is all kinds of wrong happening there. That is not okay.
I hate when he's like, as you're looking into the woman's eyes, think about God. And you're
no, sir.
These are like the people that have like the non-kinks and stuff.
It was bad enough, Kirsten, that as a child, I was like, why would God want to
Ew.
watch me pooping?
Yeah.
Like, why
Yeah.
does he want to see me pooping? Like, I don't understand. Like, he can, but does he? Like,
Oh my God. I mean, it's almost as bad as the testimony meeting with the menstrual cycle. If you guys haven't seen that, we talked about it in our members only live, but I also made a short on it, kind of giving you the gist. So if you haven't seen it, go find it. I'm not going to give away the story here because it's worth watching.
it's worse than what you think.
It 100% is. Anyways,
So-
I'm so glad we talked about this, Megan. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. I feel inspired to bear my testimony of not raising my kids in religion.
I do
I
as
feel
well.
inspired to share that I think that the conversations that we've had after me being fully out of the church have been some of the most real and honest conversations that we've had their entire lives. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to be a parent who doesn't have a religious order to fill. Because as a Mormon parent, you have a specific job, and it's to keep your kids on the covenant path, and you're a failure if you don't. And I remember feeling so much hurt and shame and sadness when my kids were not, following the Mormon path. And I'm so glad I don't have to feel that anymore, because now all I want for them is for them to have a happy and beautiful life. That's all, whatever that means for them, whatever. And they get to make it themselves without my expectations being a burden for them.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? I have thought the same thing. I've told my kids so many times, my big kids are starting to get into the mindset of college and taking their college entrance exams and things like that. And one of them in particular has been carrying that weight a lot. And I have said over and over, just hugged them and said, you can be and do whatever you want. I said, you can change your career 25 times. Like, nobody will stop you. And, we all have seen the inspirational things like Stan Lee roared his first comet at 42 or whatever, things like that. Like, you can change your mind. You can be who you can get married. You cannot get married. You can have kids. You cannot have kids. You can go to college. Don't go to college. Do what makes you happy and feels fulfilling to you. And it's okay to change your mind at any point in your life. That was not an option for me ever. That was not something I was ever told. And I am so incredibly grateful that I have children that can feel that freedom to live authentically, because it took me over 30 years to get to that point. And I truly have never been happier.
Your real life begins when you stop carrying the weight of other people's expectations,
including made up God. I said what I said. 100%. On that note, we'll see you on Monday.
We love you guys.
For family night.
Don't forget family night on Mondays. It's the best time on the internet on a Monday night. Join us for some adult beverages and some snarky making fun of our Book of Mormon cartoon books from our childhood.
And a members only live right after this. We always say it's a Q&A, but really it's just a hangout. And usually Megan and I will share stories that can't really go openly on the internet.
Yeah, it's a good time. Guys, we desire all to receive it.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.
It's wrong to criticize leaders of the church, even if the criticism is true.